Hey everybody, welcome back to my the Chaos Gym, I guess, and welcome to my little five-part segments of five decks that I want to look into going into Fort Wayne. If you guys watched yesterday's or the day before's video, it depends on when you're watching it. The Mega Blastoise deck that I covered is a personal favorite of mine. It's pretty wacky, pretty wild, but it deals with everything in the format but Mega Gardevoir, which is a little it might be a big deck in Fort Wayne. I personally think it'll be big. It's one of my favorite decks. I'm going to cover it later in the segment as well. But today's deck that I want to cover is something that's really weird and kind of unorthodox. But it's a deck that I got the idea from after one of my fans came up to me in Philly Regionals and asked me to look through his deck, and I saw it and I was like, man, Mega Altaria and expanded. That's pretty neat. Now, what if we take the same concept and apply it to standard? My biggest thinking behind this is because if Mega Gardevoir is the deck that everyone says it is, and it's going to be the biggest deck that sees play, Mega Altaria is somewhat of a counter to it. Not like a hard counter, but like a counter in a sense that you hit and heal. So you're accomplishing what Gardevoir is doing without discarding or burning the same amount of resources. Now, that being said, you don't have the same flexibility as Mega Gardevoir of discarding all your bench Pokemon, but your setups are much easier and your damage output is higher than theirs, even though they can cap at 190 as opposed to your 130 consistent damage. They have to discard and put things back in, whereas you can just go smack 130, heal 30, smack 130, heal 30, and with fairy drops it becomes a very realistic um, thing to do. So I've been playing around with this deck a lot, and I really like it. It's pretty fun. It has an innate problem with Mewtwo, but other than and like I don't expect Mewtwo to see play because of all the Gardevoir hype. But everything has one bad matchup in Standard, and you just have to accept that. In this case, it's Mewtwo. So without further ado, I'll hop into the deck. We run a 4-3 Altaria line. So what Altaria does is its first attack, powerful gain, 30 plus 60 if it was healed this turn, and heal damage from that Pokemon. Heal 30 damage. So what you could do is do two basic Fairy Energy, Fairy Drop if you need to in that particular turn, and then Smack. I don't really see you using that ever, but who knows? Situations might arise. Shining Wind, three energies for 80 during your opponent's next turn. This Pokemon has no weakness. Like I said, I don't see you attacking with this guy ever, so I wouldn't worry about it. But it's a neat thing to have. Now, Mega Altaria EX. This is the cute guy that I really, really like. So 220 HP. Um, it's 10 over the 210 like magic number in standard right now because a lot of things hit for 210, a lot of things two shot into 210, but 220 is like that 10 damage does make a difference in standard. Now some things can do it easily. Yeah, sure, whatever for those who can, good for you. But like a lot of decks, like say Gyarados for example, just can't. They're missing that small amount of damage. And then so its attack is for one fairy and a DCE, 100 plus 30 if you have a special energy attached to it, and you heal 30 from all of your Pokemon. So the idea is to Fairy, DCE, 130, heal all your Pokemon. Now this is really good because 130 is a good number. It knocks out a lot of the baby, like, problems, I would say, like Volcanion, baby Evital. Um, the it deals with a lot of the like those small guys that are kind of a pain to deal with otherwise because 130 is just a good number to hit. Baby Xerneas, whatever. And then it like effectively also sets up your it heals your board, so you're pretty much saying, hey, I can rotate between two Altarias, or I can just go um, I can just like cycle and heal with fairy drops, if that makes any sense. I don't know how exactly I would say it, but um, like an infinite lock. We have three shamans. I tried two. It just felt like I wanted more. Because usually you use a shaman to set up early, and you probably discard one, and so it's just I like three. You could cut down to two. Um, it's a personal preference. In this deck, I'd like to have three, just because you're you're like pretty much set up with two Altarias. Like getting a third one out's a luxury. This is a really cute attack I really like. Sylveon EX. So what Sylveon does is its first attack is a DCE. This Pokemon has a Pokemon tool attached to it, 30 plus 30. Now we don't play any tools, so this attack is quite irrelevant. Um, if you're using Dress Up, probably knocking out a Magikarp or something, whatever. Second attack, now that's where everything gets fun. Precious Ribbon for two fairies and a colorless. You do 100 and you move an energy, a fairy energy attached to that Pokemon to one of your bench Pokemon. If you do, heal 50 Pokemon from that Pokemon. So what you can do is set up an Altaria and a Sylveon, and you can attack with Altaria, it takes a bunch of damage, retreating the Sylveon after you've powered it up successfully, and then just Precious Ribbon and move an energy onto the bench Altaria or bench, yeah, and just you're set up. You're just straight up set up. You're moving energies. It's a better Y Cyclone. The only downside is it's two fairies and a color, so you can't do the DCE fairy. But as a one of in the deck, you can use it to deal with Giratina EX. You can deal with just 100. Like it's mainly for Giratina, like because you won't be able to find your hex all the time, and Giratina could be a pretty big problem if you can't find the hex to get through the Mega, because your baby Altaria just doesn't do the deed. So it's a one prize. It's a two prize attacker. That's just an alternate attacker to have other than your Megas. On that same token, we have Xerneas, which does Geomancy. Now, there's only one because you don't really need the Geomancy to get set up. You just need two energy attachments and you're rolling. But it's always nice to have the option to either late game, mid game, even early game, Geomancy, set up two Altarias, set up an Altaria and your Sylveon at the same time, or in the later stages of the game, Rainbow Spear serves the same purpose as Sylveon, 100 damage. You're killing Giratina. After the tremendous successes my team took at Orlando with three top 8 finishes with our Dark Eye Giratina list, I expect that to be copied. I expect that to be seeing a lot of play. Um, so you want to counter it. You want to have an answer for Giratina. This isn't a tournament you can walk into and say, hey, I'll just take the loss to Giratina. There's one Hoopa, as in any EX based deck. You want to Hoopa to draw cards. Um, Usually you can Hoopa out like Sylveon, Altaria, Shaman, draw cards. Whatever. Hoop is good. Let's jump into the trainers. It's a little weird, I know, but we'll just go. Um, there's one escape rope. Now we do play Fairy Garden, and with Fairy energies we can retreat for free, but with no real energy acceleration outside of Geomancy. Sometimes we'll have something that's stuck in the active spot that we don't want to be there. So this one of escape rope is really good, and in standard it's kind of hard to play around escape rope with a lot of decks not playing very many basic Pokemon or digging for a lot, so you can kind of punish your opponent. Say, for example, they open Talonflame and have a great Froakie on the bench. You can escape rope them into putting that Froakie active and hitting it. Or if they have like a Darkrai in the active and Giratina on the bench, same concept. A lot of decks players don't really play around escape rope, so one of escape rope is something that can take people by surprise. I really like it. It was that or a float stone, but the float stone just seemed a little. Why not? Like I like the rope better. There's two fairy drop, just the opportunity to heal. That damage is really strong. The opportunity to continue your cycle of lock, continue to make sure that your Altarias never die. Really, 220 is a lot of damage to one shot. So you just go fairy drop, retreat to the other Altaria, smack, heal, retreat, heal, heal. Just you're effectively healing 60, and that 50 for the fairy drop pretty much nullifies one attack. There's two Mega Turbo, just to get yourself rolling, to get set up a Mega Altaria on one turn. If you need to with a fairy, you Mega Turbo and DCE. It's not as hard as people think it might be. I find it very relatively easy in testing. The list is very cut and dry, very consistent. I really like it. Um, yeah, so two turbo. Maybe I would like a third, but I don't want to clunk it up because we don't have compressors, so turbo doesn't become as good in standard. Super rod, like we have super rod to couple it will also make it so you can super rod and then sycamore or like super rod and whatever. Like you have, it's not your supporter for the turn. So I like having two options of recovery in a standard format where everything is effectively a war of attrition. And nothing really gets one shot and blown out of the water. There's four trainers mill. Simple consistency. Four ultra ball. Everything's ultra ball searchable. You need that stuff. I was considering playing a repeat ball, but you wouldn't really play it to get anything but Altaria lines maybe. So it just doesn't seem as strong. Because you only play one Hoopa, so it's like, oh, let me repeat ball for another Shaman. Or, oh, let me repeat ball for another Altaria. 4 VS Seeker, pretty self-explanatory there. One Brock's Grit. What Brock's Grit does is six any combination of six Pokemon and energy into your deck, and you more than like the reason there's no Karen is because you probably don't need all these Pokemon back in your deck. But there's gonna be a rare scenario where you the Super Rod doesn't cut it, and you just kind of need more energies back into your deck after having a bad discard. Or you want that one of like Xerneas back in, or that Sylveon back in to do more shenanigans, that Hoopa back in, whatever. Like shenanigans. It opens up the door for shenanigans. We're gonna go with shenanigans here. um, sorry, I like that word. We have one Hex Maniac. You need it for like Greninja to get around Giratina. EX's ability. You need it for Volcanion to stop them. You need there's like a lot of other abilities in standard. I guess like Raichu Bats is considered a deck, so that the Manaphy X and the Blastoise deck, that's that. Abilities are strong. That's why Garbodor saw a lot of play. Stopping that's very very strong. So yeah, two Lysander. You can pretty much heal and knock out a Shaman at the same time, or pull up a threat and hit it. So basically, your game plan is to like kill things, but like never really one shot anything. But if you like see a threat on the bench, you want to pull it up and start hitting it. You want to get the first hit. You want to get the first swing, because the only way you face trouble is if they get the first hit, and now you're like scrambling to find resources to set up another Altaria, and you're going, man, what do I do if this Altaria gets knocked down? I don't have a second one ready to go. So you really want to pull up their threat and go 130, 130, and they're just like, well, you got the first knockout. I think you're gonna win this game. Um, 2N, just some stuff you might not want to discard. Playing anything less than 2N in standard unless you're playing a speed deck just kind of seems weird to me because you don't have a compressor, you can't dig out for those resources. So having 2N is just really good. 4 Sycamore, just draw cards. 4 Fairy Garden. Free Retreat is really important in this deck because what we're gonna just keep doing is cycling between our attackers and healing everything. So like literally nothing ever dies. Um, yeah, that's like the whole game plan. You get big bulky EXs. The Mega of Altaria is just very, very strong and very hard to knock out. Heals 30 as well, so you're pretty much negating one of the attack. A lot of the attacks in standard right now do between 100 and like 40 damage, 130 damage. So being able to heal that 30, you are setting yourself outside of 2-hit KO range and putting yourself in 3-hit KO range. And so retreating between two Altarias, you're consistently saying, hey, you have to find that extra damage to one-shot me now after I've healed potentially 60 damage to 110 with fairy drops, maybe 160 even. So Fairy Garden's very important so you don't burn your resources because we don't really have any other energy acceleration other than the two Mega Turbos and the one Xerneas. So yeah, the biggest things is having an Altaria down on turn one and getting an energy attachment. 3 Spirit Link. Um, yeah, you don't want to really waste your turn Mega Evolving, so it's pretty important. 4 DCE. All for Altaria. You know, maybe Shaman if you want to attack with it. I found myself attacking with Shaman before. Um, it's not the first, maybe not the last time I'll do it. Um, and then there's 8 Fairy. I think eight's a good number for energy. Um, it just feels like if I go down to 7 or less, I'm not drawing enough, and if I go to 9 or more, I'm not. I'm drawing way too many, and that just I don't like having those clunky hands with energy. Um, it's just like eight's a perfect number. I could play 7. I'd just rather not. I'd like to play this as very consistently as possible. So I'll run through the matchups a little bit while we're here, because I know that's what you guys like to hear, and that's what you guys like to talk about. Darker Giratina, very, very favorable. Yveltal Garbodor, very, very favorable. Both matchups, both decks that uh, dominated Orlando. Expect to see them in Fort Wayne. I expect them to stick around in the metagame for a long time, especially that the lists are published, the lists are out there. People can just pick it up and go in to a tournament. You beat both of those. Mega Gardevoir, slightly better than even, just because you have the opportunity to continuously heal and you're not really discarding as many resources as they would be throughout the game to get set up. Yeah. Mega Mewtwo, pretty bad. Pretty bad. Because they can just damage swap and you're like, well, let's go to the next one. Um, you can beat them. It's not impossible. Nothing in standard is impossible, but I'd put it at like a 35-65 or like a 30-70. It's a pretty bad matchup for you. Gyarados, should be winnable. You heal, you knock out, you keep moving on with your life. You have the perfect numbers to one-shot Gyarados as well. So and you're putting them in situations where they need everything for the following turn. You knock out Gyarados, they need DCE, they need Gyarados, they need Stadium, whatever, and a Buddy Buddy to do more damage. Um, what other decks are good in Standard? Um, hmm. Vileplume Box. Right. Vileplume Box, you can beat. Um, they go Regis on you. You have the Xerneas to kind of give you some oomph. Otherwise, you just kind of like sit and heal until something happens. Um, it's a weird matchup. Vileplume Box is always weird, but you can beat them. Um, it's like a 45-55, I want to say. If they get the turn one plume, you lost. But I can't think of any other decks that are good in standard. Oh, Volcanion, yeah, you're pretty good against Volcanion. Um, just you heal and do damage at the same time, and you can hex. So other than that, that's pretty much all the matchups and stuff. We covered Mega Blastoise yesterday. We did Altaria today. Up on the docket is in the next week. I don't know exactly because I'm a little busy with school right now. We're in the final stretch, college, final exams semester. Kids who are in college, people, you understand. Um, we're gonna do Raichu bats. We're gonna do Mega Gardevoir Dragonite, Rattata, Rattata, and we're going to do Volcanion. Those are my favorite decks, and I'll probably do Darker Guillotine again, just to talk to you guys about what small changes I'd make from Orlando going into Fort Wayne had I play the deck again, because it's in my top three. I won't lie to you. After the tremendous success I saw with it, it's hard for me to pick a different deck. But other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. Please be sure to leave a like. Please be sure to subscribe. I hope you enjoyed it. Please feel free to message me about questions, comment questions. I read everything you write, so please, 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 please leave feedback. I like to improve as a player. I like to improve as a video maker and a content creator for you guys. So I know we're still a very young channel, but we're going to get there. We'll get there to the numbers you want us to be there. All right. Thank you so much.